With military analysts estimating more than 1 million casualties if Japan were to be invaded, Truman decided to drop the atomic bomb instead. Here is Paul Tibbets, the pilot of the plane that dropped the first atomic bomb.
Colonel Tibbets, will you tell us some of your reactions over the target?
Well, as the bomb left the airplane, we took over manual control, made an extremely steep turn to try and put as much distance between ourselves and the explosion as possible. After we felt the explosion hit the airplane, that is the concussion waves, we knew that the bomb had exploded, everything was a success, so we turned around to take a look at it. The sight that greeted our eyes was quite beyond what we had expected, because we saw this cloud of boiling dust and debris below us. Beneath that was hidden the ruins of the city of Hiroshima.
The clocks had stopped at the moment of detonation, and so had the lives of more than 70,000 people. Hiroshima was in ruins. At ground zero, temperatures had reached 7,200 degrees Fahrenheit, singeing 4 square miles of the city. Many Japanese at the blast site were simply vaporized. Buildings still standing were the exception rather than the rule. This trolley makes a lonely trip through the wasteland that was Hiroshima. The Japanese tried their best to carry on with their lives among the ruins. Many searched for whatever was salvageable amidst the destruction. Unbroken bricks were considered a prize. The source of the destructive power of the bomb was confirmed by Japan's leading scientists, but the ruling party still refused to surrender. These Japanese are making a pilgrimage to a shrine that survived the bomb blast. Automobile travel was virtually non-existent. More reliable means of transportation were used to move people and goods around the city. One thing that was not changed by the bombing was the tradition of the open market. Anything that was thought to have value was brought to be sold for whatever it could bring. The normal activities of the citizens of Hiroshima were slowly beginning to reappear. These are the survivors of Hiroshima. It was not until 1.5 kilometers from ground zero that the wounded finally outnumbered the dead. But escaping the initial blast did not assure one's survival. This woman was actually lucky. Many had their eyes melt from staring in wonder at the blast. No one knew it as these pictures were taken, but the death toll would reach 250,000 from the blast itself and the radiation poisoning that swept through the city in the aftermath. Be aware that the following footage is graphic in its depiction of surgical procedures for radiation burns. Even when faced with this destruction and misery, the Japanese leadership was not willing to surrender. It would take a second atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki to finally convince them. Charles Sweeney, pilot of one of the accompanying B-29s, tells us of the mission.
Major Sweeney, give us some of the details of the whole flight.
We were briefed on, of course, a primary and a secondary target as usual. The primary target was located, and we made 3 runs on it, but were unable to get into it. And we started for the secondary target, which was Nagasaki, at which time the flight engineer told us we had just 1,300 gallons of gasoline left. Commander Ashworth and I held a little conference with the bombardier and the navigator, and dropped it on Nagasaki. We were very relieved to have it go. Much more relieved when we saw the tremendous flash and knew that it had functioned. At that point, we hit the road for Okinawa.
With more than 35,000 additional deaths on their conscience, Japan's leaders finally agreed to an unconditional surrender. World War II ended, and the new atomic age began.